right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and get started with our Education and Culture Committee meeting. Today is a discussion on our universities at Shady Grove. With us in attendance are Mike Knapp, former council member and chair of our USG Board of Advisors, and Dr. Stuart Edelstein, our Universities at Shady Grove Executive Director. If they could join us at the dais, we will go ahead and get started. I will say that in full disclosure, I am a member of our USG Board of Advisors, so I'm very excited and knowledgeable about the great things that are happening there. We all had a chance and an opportunity to see the beautiful new biomedical sciences and engineering education facility. I will tell you that we've shared some of this around the country, and folks are wowed by what's happening at USG. So I know that the millions that are watching at home are very excited about what's happening at universities at Shady Grove. I will just say that as a father who is now looking at college acceptance letters, it certainly represents, and for many people in our community, represents an affordable pathway for us to ensure that we have them there for folks who may look at affordability and want to have a quality education. And it really is what USG represents. And so I really want to thank you for your mission in making sure that we're continuing to deliver on that for many people in our community who still want to be challenged, still want to make sure that they're embarking on the myriad of pathways that are available through universities at Shady Grove, but can do so at an affordable cost and not have to come out with huge debt. Or just would not be able to go as a means of, what was before them. And so that really makes a difference in our community, and especially when we're talking about our racial equity and social justice lens that's there, it's representative of just that. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Howard to walk us through some of the salient points, and then turn it over to our guests to walk us through the discussion.
Thank you. I'm just going to say very briefly that the purpose of today's work session was just to get a general update from USG. It's been a long time since these folks have come and sat at the table to talk to the committee. So the idea was to come in and be able to have a conversation about USG, where it's going, where it's been, where it's headed, as well as talk about some of the new initiatives like the new building that you mentioned and things like that. So the packet just contains a variety of some background information on USG and its enrollment and things like that. But I think we'll turn it over to our folks here to walk through the presentation.
Dr. Edelstein, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having us and giving us this opportunity. I think it has been too long for us to give you a briefing, and I'm hoping that we will be able to be more together more frequently and give you more updates about what we're doing and link it better to the economic development and workforce needs of the county. I have with me Evangeline Carigua, who is a student at USG. She is majoring in political science, and I'm going to give her an opportunity just in a few minutes to say some words about her pathway and her interests in Montgomery County and what she's going to be doing with her degree. So, again, thank you. Just a little bit of background for you, just to keep you up to date. We're about 3,000 students right now. We're entering our 20th year of operation. It has been a very successful growth period for us over the last 20 years. We're now at 9 university partners. We started with 5. We started with 200 students. Now we're at 3,000. We've graduated about 12,000 students with, when I say we, our university partners. We have 9 university partners, so the degrees come from those universities. But about 12,000 students have gotten degrees. About 8,500 are baccalaureate degrees, and the remainder are graduate degrees. We know that the students who are coming to USG are coming because they need something local. They need something accessible. They intend to work in the county, in the greater region, and we know that 90% of them are in fact working with their degrees in the region after they graduate, and many of them come back actually for graduate work. I think the uniqueness of USG is that we partner with Montgomery College. So there's a 2+2 at the undergraduate level. This makes it much more efficient for students. It's cheaper. The tuition at Montgomery College is half the tuition of most of our university partners. So they start at Montgomery College, they complete an associate's degree, and then they transfer seamlessly to the degree programs that are offered at USG. Our degree programs are focused on workforce. They're focused on workforce needs, careers, and skill sets that are needed for the economy in Montgomery County and the greater region. I would say one of the things that we're most pleased about is the diversity of programs. You won't find a campus in the university system or even in the state of Maryland that has a diverse array of programs that we do in the health sciences and now in engineering and STEM and in other disciplines. The other thing that we're most proud about is the diversity of the student body. So Montgomery College is the most diverse community college in the country. Yay. Good for Montgomery County, great for Montgomery College. We get 75% of our students from Montgomery College, so we have a very, very diverse campus, and I would say we are the most diverse university campus in the state of Maryland. You know that the other thing about the diversity, which I'm very pleased about, is that it's a very high graduation rate at USG across all the different degrees. About 75% of the students who come to USG in a 4-year period will get their baccalaureate degree. That is the highest graduation rate in the university system, comparable to College Park's graduation rate. And just as a point of comparison, the average graduation rate for students who transfer to our university partners across the university system is about 53%. So this is a much, much higher graduation rate than any of our university partners. I think in part that's because we have a great relationship with Montgomery College, because we're working with those students when they get into Montgomery College. They're coming to us having declared a major. They know what they want. They know why they want it. And all of our services are designed to support students who are transferring. And they come in the same way, and they have a colleagueship and a camaraderie across all of the programs. And of course, they're hungry for getting the degree, for getting the skill sets, and for soaking up the services and the opportunities that we give them to connect to the community. And we are extremely well connected to Montgomery County and the greater region. So USG is doing extremely well, and we now have this great transformational moment because of the Biomedical Sciences Engineering Building, which you toured and you saw the beauty of the building, but more importantly, it's what's going inside the building that's going to be significant for all of us. We're bringing more engineering, computer science, more health science into the region. It is a building unique because it has all of those disciplines in one place. And on many university campuses, those disciplines are in different buildings and maybe even in different locations. And we're looking to connect those disciplines because we know that economic development, technology, activity, it happens at the interstices of many of these disciplines. And we want the students to interact with each other, and we want them to think about the next phase of their growth in terms of technology and where it's going. They will be the leaders, they will be people who will be employed, and we hope they will be developing new technologies right here in Montgomery County. So that's sort of the overview, and I'm going to ask Evangeline to talk a little bit about herself, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Knapp to talk about this commission that has been just completed now its report to the Chancellor, and what opportunities that opens up for us in terms of the recommendation of that commission, and then we can chat.
Well, welcome, Evangeline, and I certainly want to hear from you. I did just want to acknowledge that we have our Vice Chair of our universities at Shady Grove Board of Advisors, Shirley Brenman, also former member of our Board of Education. So thank you so much for being here. Evangeline?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Evangeline Kirigwa, and mine has been a bit of a long journey getting here. I came into the States from Kenya with my 2 children, and I promised them when they finish, I'll get myself back to school. So I started, when I was ready to go back, I talked to an advisor for UMUC and say, I think the best thing would be get your credentials and probably start with a community college. I thought that was a pushback, but now I see it worked exactly fine. When I was going back to school and a colleague asked me, how are you going to pay for it? I said, I don't know. I'm going, the money will find me there. So, I mean, I said, I don't know. So I went back. I started with Montgomery College, part-time, taking 2 classes, and then my son visited and said, I think your grades are good, you can be an honor student. I said, are you sure? So we went to he was already an honor student there, so we went to the director and I was accepted to the Renaissance program. That helped me to pay for my classes, because the scholarships, first the Pell Grant and some scholarship came in. I said, it's working. So then I transferred to UMBC. Because my professor there at the Montgomery College had told me a lot about the political science department. And I had invitations, acceptances for maybe 4 or 5 schools. But listening to all of them, one of them actually gave me 100%, but I considered, I listened to UMBC and I turned the other one down. So I'm glad I'm at UMBC, because I was coming back to school after many years. I was apprehensive of these big institutions. But UMBC, Shady Grove has really made things happen for me. The small classes, one-on-one focus with the professors. I mean, it's good. It's been a very good experience for me. The only thing is that coming back as a non-traditional student, which I say I'll be campaigning for that to be changed, because non-traditional needs to be redefined. Because now they say non-traditional is from 24, but I think how about 50? So, yeah, because they say I'm the kind of student who shows up and they don't know whether I'm faculty or but I'm a student. I have to remind them I'm a student. So, and I have received this much support with Dr. Edelstein and everyone, and he has personally taken time off for me, which I really appreciate. And when they asked me to come up here to talk about that, I would say I will just make it as brief as I can. And what I would like to do with my degree, all the years growing up, I got interested in politics, because I know I go back to Latin, I don't know very well, but poly is something to do with people, and it's always there. If you're interested in people, you have to be interested in the politics. You can't separate the two. So I thought the best way to do it is get myself equipped with a degree, understand the functions, the law, the government, everything that I need to understand, because it's no point having a passion and not having the equipment, I mean, being equipped to handle it. So the degree of political science is really making things happen for me. I'm working on graduating next year. Now, a few months ago, beginning of this year, something I've been thinking about, I will start to work on an initiative, a community engagement initiative, which I call a DICE. That's the acronym DICE. It's a Diaspora Initiative for Civic Engagement. And my purpose is to encourage, especially what concerned me to come into this was seeing the big number of naturalized citizens who are not engaged in things that are going on around them. I was born in another country, but being a citizen here now tells me this is where I need to concentrate more. It's good to be interested out there, but this is where I go to work, this is where I earn my daily bread, this is where my children are working and living, and so I need to know what goes on. So my own example was from the time my children were in school, and my daughter was in high school in Kenya, I'm on a PTA. Youngest parent, I was almost snapped because of my age, but that was all right. And when my son was a student at Richard Montgomery High School, I was on the PTA because when my son is going to school there, I'm in there. Opening night, the back to school nights, I'm right there because I need to know what's going on. What is he getting and what is he not getting? If he is towing the line as what is expected. And I told the teachers, if he is late for class, let me know. You have my phone number, email, no excuse that you couldn't reach me. So I like that bit of engagement because I work together with the teachers, molding the students, and I will challenge everyone else. We cannot afford to stand aside and expect the teachers to do everything if the parents are not stepping up to the plate. So I say, I'll give an example of my own self, get everybody together and encourage them, be registered to vote, be interested in what's going on in your neighborhood. If you get membership in your neighborhood association, you should also be on the PTA, know what's happening down your street. When lights are out, you know, why are they not fixed? You need to be right there. So I will not tell them something that I've not done. I'm not asking them to do what I have not done. I'm saying it because I've walked this journey, and this is what I'm encouraging others to do. Where we were born and everything else, that's all right, but this is it. We have to be here, help our children walk the walk. You don't just talk the talk without walking the walk. You have to be part of the process. And that's my mission, and whatever opportunity I get, I've got, like I said, with the support of Dr. Edelstein, I've reached to the county council, I've met some officials here, and I appreciate what is going on so far. So this is the mission that I'm pursuing, and as I said, with the degree, it just puts the icing on the cake. Yeah.
Well, that is fantastic, Evangeline. Let me just congratulate you on your success so far, and I know that there's continued success ahead. It is really something, and it says something about the great work that's happening at USG, from being a naturalized citizen and coming and still understanding the importance and responsibility of being a player in our community, of being involved and engaged in citizenry and what it means to be a voice in the community. All of those things are incredibly important, and I know how hard it is based on what we see in the national spotlight for folks who have come to this country to feel a part, because a lot of people want to make it seem as though that's not the case. And I just really want to congratulate you on understanding you deserve a place at the table. You deserve to have your voice heard. And so thank you so much for doing that. I'll turn to our council president, Council Member Navarro.
Evangeline, thank you so much for sharing that story, because sometimes I think, when we look at these kinds of brochures and when we have conversations about what we're trying to do in this space, sometimes we miss the mark in acknowledging another amazing asset that having voices like yours in USG, what that means for us here in the county, because what you just described is has everything to do with empowerment, with civic participation, with integrating our very large immigrant community and making a difference. And maybe we don't find that in a curriculum, but what you just described that has been facilitated by USG, it's very valuable, right? There are right now lots and lots of organizations trying to figure out how to do what you just described.
Right.
And so I want to congratulate you and congratulate USG for providing that kind of ecosystem that is validating such an important asset. Also, I'll be happy to meet with you later, because I launched a project working with the Latino community on civic engagement, and we created a curriculum that can also be transferred to other immigrant communities. What you just described is really important, because we come, I come from Venezuela, and we come here, and that's an issue in many of our communities, that people are so focused on what's happening in the home country that they forget to participate in the local level and the state and the national level. And so having voices like yours, it's almost like we're translating culturally what it means to be, involved civically, and that political participation is an offshoot of that civic participation. That is really critical. And for a county like ours, it's fundamental, because we are such a diverse county that we need more and more participation from our immigrant community. So you're onto something with that project. I can see how it can really grow and be pivotal in our county in terms of how do we then get all of our community members involved in this particular process. So anyway, I would love to meet with you afterwards just to share some of our lessons, the things that we have learned with this project as well, and see maybe how you can adapt it to what you're already doing with that particular project that you just described as well.
Yes, I would just like to appreciate you, because I know I've watched you in your functions. You may not know, but the last time we had the legislative breakfast, I'm the lady who stepped up and asked for a picture with you.
Ah, okay. See, I'm so glad I took it. That's awesome. Thank you, Evangeline. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And thank you to USG again. These are the stories that have compounding positive effect out in our communities. And, you know, this issue of parental engagement, one of the workshops in our Latino Civic Project in Spanish is called Nosy Parents. Wow. And what we say is that it's okay to be a nosy parent because back home, you're not supposed to go to school. It's disrespectful to be in the school as a parent unless your child is in trouble or if there's like a particular like dance recital or something. Other than that, you're not supposed to go. But what we say is that in this country, it's the opposite. You have to be very involved. And so there are cultural nuances that, you know, you can work on to increase parental engagement that you might not find in a book about parental engagement necessarily, right? So that's why voices like yours are so important when it comes to this issue of cultural, you know, competency. It makes a big difference. Thank you.
Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council President, and again reminded of my favorite committee. I'll say that in front of Councilmember Reamer, who's the chair of my second favorite committee.
That's why he's here.
Yeah, exactly. He had to join the fun. But no, Evangeline, it's great to see you and Stu and Mike. Thank you guys for being here and giving such a great presentation. I couldn't agree more with the ecosystem and the pathway that USG creates for so many students from so many different backgrounds. I just was at a class, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, giving a presentation, and I love coming to the campus and meeting with students, and it's good to see you again. And you know, we can certainly talk more about. I created 2 civic engagement nonprofits because I care. You know, this because we care about it so much, and it's such a huge, important issue. To the Council President's point, we've just scratched the surface on this. There's so much more to do, you know, Our Voices Matter, which focuses on low-income populations, the 6 lowest income tracts in the county, to increase civic engagement, and then the African Immigrant Caucus, which particularly focuses on African diaspora members, and they're celebrating their 5-year anniversary of trying to engage and overcome some of the same hurdles that are cultural barriers for that population. So certainly want you to learn from all that's been done and really take it to the next level. My mind is just going fast and excited to hear that you articulated it so well and have lived that journey and have done it yourself, and so I think you'd be a great messenger. And it's great that USG is fostering that and giving you the tools, equipping you to help that. So we certainly consider us, and me specifically, an ally in helping you achieve your goals.
I just forgot to mention that I'm on the Students' Council too at ASG.
And I just wanted to say that she's a little bit shy. She was just named. She was just named to the National Honor Society for Political Science, and that's a very big honor.
Nice.
Mr. Knapp.
Well, thank you. No, I concede the point right away. But I just want to agree with you that I think education has, having chaired both Ed and Fed, I think that education was my favorite committee too. Although Fed was a close second. You didn't have to worry about, you know, heights and setbacks and things like that. I just didn't do so well at. No. They really didn't. In fact, my chief of staff one day said, you know, this really just wasn't the right place for you, was it? So anyway, so the Ed Committee is always a fun place to come back to. And Evangeline and the story that Evangeline provided is phenomenal and singular and yet not. You can talk to, we could bring 5 other students and they would all have amazing and unique stories and what they bring in their perspectives that really make USG the place it is, which is also the foundation of what makes Montgomery County what it is. And so it's so important, which is why we're here and why the Board of Advisors does what it does, because we want to make sure that community voice is there to make sure we're capturing all of that and make sure that the students get what they need. It's interesting. We had a debate at the commission meeting a week and a half ago about the concept of traditional versus non-traditional students, because one of the provosts of one of the institutions wanted to identify that we were going to address non-traditional students, at which point somebody on our team said, what's a traditional student look like anymore? And that there just really isn't that, especially as academia continues to evolve, and that USG is such a model of just teaching students and reaching students where they are, that to try to differentiate and distinguish between non-traditional versus traditional didn't even seem to make much sense, because we just want to make sure we're meeting students' needs. So the exciting thing is that, and Stu kind of gave you the overview, so we're at a very exciting transitional point. One of the things that Stu didn't say, though, is in addition to the fact that all of the students are staying here, a great majority of our students are staying here, more than half of them likely wouldn't be getting a four-year degree but for the fact that University of Shady Grove exists. And so not only are they getting additional education and staying here, but we're educating a part of the population that up heretofore would not have received that. And so we're increasing that opportunity for our county and increasing that opportunity for our residents as well. And so that's an exciting thing. And so when we think about why is it important to take USG from what it is to what it can be, think how many more students we should be providing degrees to that we're not reaching yet. And so that's really the exciting part about the new building and where we're trying to grow to. So I am fortunate enough to be able to chair the Board of Advisors, and the Board of Advisors was identified at the very beginning of this institution because, as you may recall, the history of USG really came from the community. It was born from the Tech Council, it was born from the local chamber, and really local business people coming together saying we don't have a place that our employees and our future employees can get the education that we need to ultimately make our businesses grow. And so took that and really ran with that and gave a platform. But they said in order for us to make sure that that's going to continue to happen, we need to make sure that we have a mechanism for the community to always provide that input and that voice. And so a board of advisors was actually codified in the bylaws, and so we're identified through the leadership at USG, but we're ultimately appointed by the chancellor. And so it's not just a group of folks that come together and have some nice thoughts. It really is formalized within the institution itself, and so it's a very important voice. And given so, we wanted to make sure that we are connecting all of those dots. And so just to give an example of some of the things we do in addition to meeting as a board of advisors, we also have recognized it's important to connect back to our other policymakers in the area of education. And so we've formulated over the last 7 years meetings between the Board of Education, the Montgomery College Board of Trustees, and USG to make sure that from a policy perspective, we're all getting together and having those conversations and dialogue as well, to be able to make sure that the full community perspective is being taken into account as we try to figure out how to guide the institution. Recognizing that we were at a very interesting milestone, transitional point, transformational point, the Board of Advisors recognized it was time to do something a little more engaging, a little more active. So we looked at there's going to be a new chancellor, we recognize there's going to be a new college president at UMCP, we recognize that, much to our chagrin, Dr. Edelstein is deciding that it's time to go play somewhere else and do other fun things as he retires at the end of this end of this school year. And so we also recognize we're going to have this brand new building that's going to allow us to double in size. And so when all of those things kind of come together, the 9 institutions that we engage with, we're at a level now, we're bigger than what, two of the universities potentially? Soon 3. And so we are playing at a very different weight class than what we first started. We had a few students, now we're at bigger than 3 institutions, and so you look at that, and so we're going down and effectively competing in Annapolis with the same folks that we're trying to be partners with back here. And that creates a very interesting dynamic. And to kind of hope that things were going to work in our favor seemed to be a bit of a rolling of the dice that we didn't want to be able to play. So we wanted to make sure that we were taking a more active and engaged role. And so the board put together a strategic plan a year and a half ago, really outlining what its role would be. And then the next step was to really begin to advocate more forcefully for USG within the system itself. And so we worked with our delegation to request a study that was ultimately put into the Joint Committee recommendation in the budget this past year to look at the growth and future viability for USG and how it would grow and continue to meet and serve the needs. And that commission was tasked with looking at the leadership, and they'll evaluate leadership and new funding model to better ensure the long-term fiscal viability of USG, the additional missions for USG based on economic development needs of the region and state, and current and planned transportation enhancements to USG and a cost-benefit analysis of that plan, and that they would report that back on December 1st. And so we wanted
fiscal model.
And the fiscal model, correct, and the fiscal model. And so we wanted to make sure that not just that there was a study that was going to take place, but that we as a board would help to try and frame that. And so we identified 5 elements that we needed to make sure were captured within that report. First among those was to affirm the core mission of USG to provide affordable and accessible higher education to baccalaureate and post-baccalaureate levels that serve the workforce and economic development needs of our county and the surrounding region. Which sounds like it's something that would be a no-brainer, but the reality is we serve a very unique population, we serve a very unique mission, and to assume that other institutions within the system would do that, we thought was taking a lot at risk. And so we wanted to make sure that whatever this report said, it affirms that mission. Second, we want to institutionalize and position USG within USM structurally and legislatively with the sustainable financial structure that supports student success and eliminates barriers to program and enrollment growth. One of the challenges we run into every year is that USG in and of itself doesn't have a budget. It has a little bit that comes through the system, and most of the rest of it comes through the programs that are provided by the institutions themselves. And so how do we make decisions to be able to bring the programs here ultimately that are needed to make our employees, our employers, and our residents more successful? And so we needed a different fiscal model that would allow for that to occur within the system. And so we wanted to make sure that happened. We also need to simplify and clarify USG's decision-making structure within USM and define the roles and responsibilities of the executive director and participating higher education institutions that are partnering with us to make sure decisions get made more effectively. Stu has been phenomenal over the last 20 years at navigating the arcane world of academia and has done so with the support of previous chancellors, of staff within the university system, but that's a hard thing to do. And we want to make sure that we weren't beholden to somebody had the level of finesse that Stu could provide and that the chancellor on any given day really liked us. We wanted to make sure that there was actually a structure in place that allowed for the executive director to be able to make decisions, work with the community, identify the things that needed to happen, and be able to work with them within the system to bring the programs here that made this successful. And that doesn't really exist today. Stu has just kind of gone above and beyond to be able to make that happen. Then we want to make sure that we further institutionalize the role of the community through the board of advisors, and we want to make sure that we were then leveraging university systems research assets and educational research assets to allow us to be able to grow within the county more globally. We have FDA, we have NIST, we have NIH, and yet we don't have a lot of university system research assets that are located here. Even though we have IBBR, which is located on the USG campus, we have NCCOE across the street, but we haven't necessarily worked within the system to say, how do we take those other assets that are UMB, that are at UMCP, and begin to co-locate them closer to the institutions they want to work with and be able to use the footprint that we have at USG or other mechanisms, but coming through kind of USG, so we're coordinating this across the institutions and making sure that there's opportunities available for our students to be able to use that for tech transfer and to grow our economic base. And so we want to be able to make sure that was captured as well. And then also the transportation model. We need to make sure that, especially with the state's move on the CCT, that we've got to begin to address a way to put a transportation mechanism in place that makes this work. Right now it can take a student anywhere from 55 to an hour and 15 minutes to get from Shady Grove Metro over to the USG, and that's crazy. It's what, 3 miles? 5. And so we want to make sure that those were there. And so that's our intent. And so we worked over the last 4 months with the commission to make sure these pieces were happening. There's a report that has been forwarded to the chancellor that he was supposed to read over the weekend. I haven't seen if he actually did or not yet, which will then be forwarded to Department of Budget and Management, ultimately to send along to Department of Legislative Services to share with the broader delegation. And in there, it actually, interestingly, and much to our surprise, codifies much of what we looked for through our Board of Advisors requests. The challenge will be the parts that didn't get the level of clarity that we think were needed are there were improvements made on the financial model. There was recognition of what we needed at a conceptual level, but we still need to make sure it's implemented more effectively so that we actually can see a real budget on a regular basis at USG. And then the role of the executive director. Not surprisingly, within academia, titles and positions are challenging to define, and they're one of the few things that people really are staking their claims over. And so each of the institutions really felt that they wanted to assert a little more control. We obviously recognized that it was much more important to have the executive director, who is the person that's here on the ground engaging with the community, to be able to engage back within the system and determine what we as a community need. So we didn't reach consensus on what the right pathway for that was, but we did identify what the challenges were, and we'll make and I think the next steps will be to really define the roles and responsibilities within the system as to what does this position look like going forward. And one of the things that was even proposed was to rename this position to make it more reflective of an academic nomenclature. And so is it a president? Is it a senior vice president? For different titles that need to be put out there, but a notion of an executive director isn't really an academic title. And so that we have a title, so when this position walks in the room, people know where it fits and have the ability to engage within the broader system. And so we're putting that forward. And then that's great. And what that does is now sets a framework and a nice document that allows us to say all of these things should be happening here at Shady Grove on steroids. We should be taking this to the next level. But it's just a report, and a report only gets you so far. And so our next steps is to say, how do you take this report, and how do we as a community begin to rally around that? And to the point that we all raised at the beginning, USG has always been a nice thing to have in Montgomery County, but we as a county have never really kind of identified this as an asset that we've kind of brought in to figure out how to leverage. How does it align with MC? How does it align with MCPS? And so one of the things I think is going to be really important is, especially given the conversations that you, Chairman Reamer, are having, that the county executive has raised, we know we need increased academic presence, whether it's research or expanded workforce or graduate programs that are here. How do we leverage the asset that we have through USG to engage the broader university system to bring those things here? And how do we do that to meet the needs that we as a community and as a county want, and we're speaking with one voice? Because there's significant opportunity, but right now there is no one voice that's kind of pulling all of that together. It's kind of all over the place. And so if the state, if the system, if the delegation recognizes that we want to leverage this asset more effectively, we now have a pretty good club to beat people around with, to say, well, let's bring this here. This is what we want. We are the economic engine. People recognize that. We don't have a four-year university in a traditional sense. We have what I think is actually a better model going forward. But how do we make sure that the people are bringing the things that we need here to grow? And the reality is that that's got to come with a greater level of engagement with you, working with us, and then to work more closely with the delegation. And so what we'll be putting together is a series of steps, and what we'd hope that you guys will do as well is to think about how do we want to pull that together? How do we even have more regular meetings here at the council that bring MCPS, MC, and us together at the same time, and recognize that you're already spending a significant amount on MCPS. You're already making an incredible investment to Montgomery College. And so to bring one more education institution to the trough and say, great, fund USG too, that doesn't necessarily make sense. It is a state institution, and it's state funded. And so how do we make sure that we're lobbying for the resources that should be coming from the state, similar to what are going to other communities in the state, where they're getting state dollars? UMCP is not going to College Park and not going to Prince George's County and saying, hey, give us more money to grow things here on the campus. They're going back to the state and lobbying for those activities. We should be taking similar approaches here to make sure those things are taking place and getting what we think is what we need to do to be able to grow our economy, to be able to then grow the state's economy and put those pieces forward. And so we've got lots of different things that we can kind of walk through, but that's where we are right now. This commission report will go to the legislature on December 1st. We are going to intend to be in Annapolis. We're going to be putting together the position description for the executive director over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks. Hopefully that will be much more robust and much clearer than what's in the current document. And then what is it that we think we need? How do we begin to pull those pieces together as a community and then start to begin to forcefully advocate and make sure that what's outlined in this report ultimately is what happens at USG? And so that's what we as a board advisor are going to be focused on, and we look to work with you to hopefully make that very successful so we can end up with 3 or 4 times as many Evangelines that are walking around our county, because they're the folks who are going to make this place grow and thrive.
Excellent. Well, I see some lights on, so let me turn to Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Really excited by this meeting. Thanks for convening it and your support of USG, of course. Mike, that was really just an important presentation that you gave, and I want to thank you for your role with USG and with the college, but you've really been at the crucible of where a lot of this thinking has come together, and it has, so I just really appreciate your role, and what you just laid out for us is a roadmap for the county to get focused on delivering enhanced investment and more success and more prosperity for our community. And it's not up in the clouds, it's right here, right now. Let's get moving. So, I did have a quick clarifying question. On the front page, it mentions something called the County Executive Silver Spring Initiative for Research. Does anyone know what that is?
I think it's an incorrect representation of the County Executives Initiative in Whiteford.
Okay, got it. And then, okay, so that is an important topic for us to tackle. I think that we all really should just be at the level of, let's get more investment in higher education in Montgomery County. And USG should be the default choice because it's built, it's there. We're all at groundbreaking for 35, a building with a capacity for 3,500 degrees annually in the STEM fields. And so it would be typical of Montgomery County to begin chasing a new bouncing ball while the home run is floating in, to hit out of the park.
Typical of the old Montgomery County.
Well, let's do that. Let's do that. Which isn't to say that there isn't room for new initiatives and labs and so forth. But we've got this amazing facility that's there. How are we going to fill it? The first item here is that we have the opportunity to double the size of our student enrollment. But how are we, and I know you've just basically asked that same question, how are we going to do that? You've outlined a lot of the contingent factors, but it seems to me we need an alliance that brings together the county and the private sector. Because if I understand the history of USG, it was created as a result of a lot of advocacy from our business community leadership.
Yep.
And so now we need them again. It's time to get the band back together and say, let's go get the budget to fill this building up with tremendous programs and students, cranking out degrees, growing our economy. So, comments on how to bring that about.
Well, I think, I think this building will have a lot of the skill sets that are going to drive the technology economy, the R&D economy, which already exists in Montgomery County. We just have to grow it, and we have to support it so that it can grow the companies that are currently here and attract more companies to grow it. And as a result of the opening of the building, we've already gotten companies that have come to us and said, we want to partner with you. We want to be co-located with you. We've got development right across the street from us. They're doing mixed use, but they'll be doing more companies, probably laboratory-based companies. They want access to the students that are being graduated from the programs. They want to partner to see if we can do some entrepreneurship work with them. So we're already getting a lot more interest, because we have now the degrees that are going to be important to these companies. And I think we just need to figure out a way in which we can connect to the county's efforts, MCEDC, your efforts, our business community, and then begin to build this framework for making sure that the degrees we're bringing and growing are meeting that need to grow those companies and to attract more companies, because we have the talent. The basics for the work is talent production, our local talent. Make sure that our local talent is prepared and ready to engage in the jobs and the skills that are needed to grow the economy.
Yeah, I can finish up. I just got one other discrete point, and then I'll wrap up. All right, I'm done. Thank you. On the transportation issues that you mentioned, Mike, I think that those are a challenge not only for USG, but for that area, which has been long planned for the Quarter Cities Transit Way, and which is still a football. But we have before us coming a recommendation from the planning board to accelerate their work on the 270 transit corridor, which partly is intended to devise new transit solutions that could be, not substitutions for the CCT, but maybe interim approaches for the here and now circulator type transportation strategies. So that's coming to the full council. I believe all my colleagues here are enthusiastic about taking on a revision of the transportation concepts to get some investment on the ground while we secure the funding for the CCT. We need the CCT to support the future vitality of USG and that whole core of our life sciences biotechnology.
So are they coming with recommendations, or they're coming to start the conversation to begin to put that package together?
So the chair of the planning board has proposed a I-270 corridor transit master plan amendment, and what they're seeking is to accelerate it as part of a revision of the master plan vision for that area. And so that they would like to start now, like in December, with some consulting on transit solutions. But I think ideally, maybe we could work towards a budget recommendation this spring, for some kind of circulator or something like that.
Well, just let us know, because obviously it'll be great to engage that conversation and make sure we're part of that, so that that we get plugged in the right way.
Absolutely.
Is that moving up the corridor, but it's not connecting us to other parts of the county? So one of the issues is the CCT was going to connect to the BRT, and that would bring us closer to Silver Spring, to Bethesda, to FDA. We need that kind of connectivity so the students can get to those places and people from those places can get to us.
Right. Exactly. So we need a layering of solutions.
So let me first apologize to my colleagues on the committee. Normally, as chair, we defer to our committee members first, so I apologize to Councilmember Juando and Council President Navarro. It was just Councilmember Reamer had his light on, and so automatically I assumed he was a member of our committee. So let me turn, Councilmember Juando had his light on first, and then Council President Navarro.
In this day and age, it's nice to see collaboration, collegiality.
Yep. Council President Navarro with the follow-up on Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I just really wanted to follow up on Councilmember Reamer's comments, because tomorrow, tomorrow is when we're adopting our economic development platform. And my vision and basically what I believe we can achieve with this framework is precisely address this conversation that we just had, right? So the committees are going to now get to work and work on action plans on each of those quadrants. And so this issue of workforce development, which is what we're talking about, and how do we then leverage USG is so important. So I'm hoping that the joint committees, Fed and Education and Culture, can come together to address many of these particular pieces. Like Councilman Reamer was saying, we already have invested in this amazing facility, this institution. We need to make sure that we're leveraging that, right? We need to talk about how transportation also plays into this. But it's in each of these quadrants. And my hope with this platform was that then we can be methodical and disciplined in our approach versus this issue is happening, let's go address it. This other one is happening. We need to be holistic so that we can then realize our outcomes. So I really wanted to point that out. And also tomorrow we are going to have a joint committee on WorkSource Montgomery as well. So all of this is so timely when it comes to this framework, and I hope that we can continue to, again, have the conversations within the framework to also identify what are the opportunities but the barriers and work on those in a disciplined fashion. I'm excited about it because I know that we have so many assets already that we can really produce amazing results. So I really just wanted to point that out as one of the things that we've been working on so hard.
No, and it's exciting. And one of the things I think that will be here in the report that will come out is looking at developing a strategic plan for Shady Grove that will be spearheaded by Shady Grove, that can become the roadmap for not just what do we need to do today, but looking at part of this, we included a study working with MCEDC on some of the challenges we're facing economically in their community. But where's the puck going that we want to try to be skating towards, and making sure that we're there and putting those pieces together? And so how do we do that strategic plan that thinks about how do we connect with industry, how does that get to here, but then how does that back all the way up so that we're engaging seventh
But we
graders?
have to find a way to plug that into this platform.
Right.
Because if not, then we are literally repeating what we have done up until now. You know, we talk about the new Montgomery, the new way is that we have got to be super strategic, and not, kind of rely on, hey, there's a strategic plan over there, and there's one over there, et cetera, and then we wonder why we haven't been as focused as we needed to be and as intentional. So that's the goal, is that we can take that, plug it in as well, and see how it's connecting to all the things that we want with industries and with whatever it is that we want to pursue, right? And make sure that we have all these incredible students taking advantage of those opportunities and those jobs that are coming out, and plugging that in. So that is the goal of having this overarching platform for the county in an aligned fashion that I think will be the way forward. The new Montgomery, as we were saying. Sorry to continue.
Councilmember Jawando.
And it's, again, love working with my colleagues. This is great. So I was doing a little calculating here. So Montgomery County, largest county in the state. Prince George's County, number 2. Baltimore County, number 3. Prince George's County, University of Maryland, College Park, Bowie State University. Baltimore County, UMBC, Townsend, right? I might be missing somebody, but you'll agree. Minimum of 2 4-year institutions of higher education, state schools in these other smaller, larger counties. Montgomery County, we have a great institution that has kind of started as a startup, as you mentioned, but now we're at the size of getting ready to double. We have, to your point, Mike, Chairman Knapp, or Board Chairman Knapp, all of the advantages of all these multiple degrees from different institutions, you can, which is a great advantage, particularly the way higher education is going. But, I'll say it here, University of Maryland, Montgomery County. So I hope that this strategic plan will, as we're envisioning who we're going to be, what needs to be here, I think there's a strong case to be made that that's what we should be. If not in name, particularly in how we operate. And so, I think the advocacy role that we have as a council to work with our state delegation to push for these recommendations. I'm eager to see the report. I agree with you. We should be front and center right there with you. It should be a state-led priority for us next year, at a minimum, once we figure out what we're as our priorities to the council, so to the delegation. So I would just love your comments on any of that, but I just making sure that that I think I speak for all of us. We're ready to push that agenda aggressively and help you do that.
Well, I would welcome Stu's comments, but I think globally, yes, we agree. I think one of the things to be mindful of is there is the changing state of higher education. And so do we have a unique model that's actually really exciting and not kind of get bogged down in what is the traditional kind of 4-year model? How do we take this cool thing that we've got with 9 different universities and provide the right leadership structure to that so we can take that and kind of grow that on steroids and be able to kind of pick and choose, but have the ability not just necessarily even pick and choose from within the university system. Maybe there's a program at GW or a program at Virginia Tech, or that could augment something that would be very exciting here, and have the ability, because our employers need that or our residents need that, to be able to reach out and bring those types of programs in and build that kind of cross academic collaboration. I think we recognize that exactly what you said, and former County Executive Leggett, who's now on the Board of Regents, at one of our commission discussions gave a nice history of back in the mid-90s when this was all coming together, that we obviously wanted to have a four-year university. And everybody recognized that for a variety of reasons, cost being the most significant, that wasn't going to be a likely outcome, and that people thought that, gee, I don't know about this model. Is this the right way to go? It's kind of coming in second place. The reality is, and I think this report will affirm, that this has been an amazingly successful model, has reached populations you never would have likely reached otherwise. So let's not necessarily scrap that for something else, but how do we take that and take that to the next level and define what that should be? And so I think we're very much in agreement. And, do we have a president that, the president of universities of Montgomery County, University of Maryland, Montgomery County, and we need to take those steps and be able to make that even bigger and more significant so that within the system people recognize the role that we have and can engage. And so we're all on board and want to use this as a platform, and so we're excited to see your enthusiasm. And I will just close by saying again, thank you. This is 3 weeks in a row that you guys are either visiting or talking about USG, and very much appreciate that, because that hasn't typically been the way it's gone over the last 15 years. And that's it's not a problem. It's not a fault of anybody. It's just not the way we've necessarily gotten there. But if we're going to make this going forward, we're going to have this type of partnership. So I very much appreciate your engagement.
Cost effectiveness, 2/3 of the students going from Montgomery County, coming through our community college system, a wide array of degree offerings. Let's expand it even more.
Okay.
So we're excited. So thank you very much. And Stu, if you had anything to say.
I would just say, let's remember that there's significant changes in leadership that are occurring at the state level, at the university level. This is not a one-touch. Implementing this plan that's been put out in the commission will be long-term. So we all need to be engaged. We need to be attentive. We need to work with our delegation. We need to make sure the university system understands that there are interests here that need to be addressed. And we can use our board of advisors. We can use our delegation. The county needs to be much more at the table and connected to what we're doing with our MCEDC and our business community. So we need to put all of these groups together and work collectively over a longer period of time to make sure that we're doing the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, Dr. Edelstein, I couldn't agree with you more. And so in closing, let me just say that, again, I'm really happy that we are spotlighting on what's happening at universities at Shady Grove. And I will say that it's not lost, and I'll be a little bit more aggressive than you're able to be, in that the university system itself is still questioning whether or not the model of USG makes sense for it. And so I do want to make sure that my colleagues do know that there's work at play as to whether or not the universities at Shady Grove model makes sense. Well, we have a student that's in front of us that embodies exactly why it makes sense and why it needs to happen. And it needs to be expanded, because we see the opportunity that was afforded Evangeline that can also be to so many students, so many people throughout Montgomery County. And it represents something that, again, it means a tremendous difference. Keep in mind, a person who has a $200,000 student loan, that's like a mortgage for 30 years, on top of a mortgage that they will be taking out for their actual home.
Trust me, I know.
And so from that perspective, I mean, it has significant implications. It really does. And it really does make a difference in terms of being in one job, in one position, and then being able to leverage and go to a completely different level based on time and investment, right? And making a difference and making a different way of life for yourself and for your family. That's what it represents. It's not just this Institute of Higher Education. It is truly life-changing. It is something that embodies us in what we talk about when we're saying we want all our constituents here to be able to take themselves to the next level, to achieve whatever opportunity it is that they see as the culmination of their future. That's what a unique place like this represents. And so certainly from my perspective, and again, I gave my full disclosure as a member of the Board of Advisors, it really should represent all of our university systems of Maryland, not just the ones who have decided to partner, along with then the options of being innovative about others. But it should truly be a model that is one that gives the best of everything that the university system of Maryland has to offer to all students here in its largest jurisdiction. So with that, I really want to say thank you. We're looking forward to great opportunities that are going to be out there in terms of continued partnership with you. We see what happened with the biomedical sciences facility, and what's going to happen there is just tremendous. The partnership with the dental facility there in the community. So we know that there are great things that are going to be coming out of this, and really want to just say thank you for all of your hard work, your leadership, and we'll be there to support you as we battle in Annapolis. So thank you, guys. All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
we are adjourned. I thank my colleagues.